Ginrai is like your toxic ex. There's just enough good where whenever you see them, you're convinced this time will be different. But as always, after playing with them, you're both left a lubed up floppy mess that regrets the $250 you spent. Welcome, Action Masters, to one of the most frustrated takes on this guy you'll see all year. I'm the Configurator, and this is MPG09, most proliferated garbage, Super Ginrai. That said, let's begin on a positive note. He comes with some cool shit. 2 guns, 2 more guns, but smaller, that can all plug into his palms securely, albeit with excessive force. 2 hollow as my soul shoulder cannons, and some covers for when they're not in use. Blast effects with the nice yellow gradient that can plug into any of the array of weapons. Kinda. Some awesome quadruple molded lightning effects with adapters allowing them to plug into the palms, other palms, or weapons. A stand adapter, no stand. Extra all blue hands that can be stored along with the lightning bolt adapters in the trailer. They slide out and into the forearms for some pretty satisfying swappability. 2 extra head sculpts, 1 toy, and 1 tune accurate. They too can slide off and on very smoothly. And a little guy. And another little guy. And okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. This static Ginrai figure is the perfect excuse to make the transformable version less posable. I won't lie though, his precise paint apps over white plastic and ability to be plugged in and easily rocked out of Prime's cab make him a pretty fun addition. But that's where the fun ends. Transformable generic anime lead is done well enough with articulation only resulting from his transformation, but some nice paint apps over his white plastic bikini to even include a tiny tampographed Autobot insignia. His shiny backpack may be a Homeland Security risk, but it sure makes a statement shooting out the front of the truck. Wait, that's not the intended gimmick? Well, at least we get some paint rub out of it. The resulting truck conglomerate looks well enough with some unfortunate but playable 5mm ports that support any of the weapons. Nice tampos for the trailer stripe and striking red and silver paint distributed over the front of the cab, plastic tires, and definitely not robot thigh gas canisters. I don't need my figures to be covered in paint, but the shades of blue and red plastic chosen here are pretty unimaginative. Even more so is the insulting choice to leave the arms untransformed sans the usual flip of the hands. Supposedly done to keep the transformation as close to the original as possible, I can't help but wonder how bored the designers at Takara are these days. Speedrunning this strikingly G1 transformation process, we'll begin by inserting the engine block into the grille, though this surely won't be the only time you'll need to do so. And between you and me, the Power Master doesn't even need to be inserted to get the legs out because of the nylon-type material used for the tab that tries its best to recreate the original gimmick. You can mitigate Anime Man's need to yeet himself if you brace his legs against the walls of the grille. Now, onto the legs, which are really the only enjoyable part of this transformation. Besides the way the feet cleverly slide down and the 5th wheel folds flush, the rest of the process is just as fiddly as our little Optimus Prime corpse stealer. The front of the cab flops around on a die-cast double hinge that will collide with the antenna if you're not careful. The arms have 4 tabs offset from each other by 90 degrees, and when they all have to seat at the same time, it makes untabbing them a struggle of bending plastic around plastic. Yet, I do enjoy how the bicep locks firmly into place. The fists aren't anything special, but I much prefer splitting the forearms than opening a flap. The shoulders operate on a double hinge with no locking point, meaning that seating the tab can take a try or two, and I'm left wondering why the cab's ladders flip up into his armpits instead of filling out the gaps in his torso, caused by lazily thought-out ab panels, which, mind you, are as clumsy as they look, even with catches for your fingernail. The side panels are easier to get out, and maybe even a little fun, but you didn't hear that from me. A classic spin of the waist leaves the head for last, like any good conversion should. But again, with no locking position, Ginrai's neck flap can take a couple tries to tab into the front of the cab, especially while also trying to deal with the tab revealed by the Power Master. Now, after that frustratingly unintuitive process, I must say we are left with a good-looking robot mode, even when this pose isn't doing him any favors. The sculpting of the legs and head is a masterclass in bringing a character to life, even if somehow evocative of Elijah Wood. No? Just me? But juxtaposed to 5mm port-compatible hands makes me wish they would have chosen a clearer aesthetic direction. Is this a walking cartoon, or an upgraded toy? The newly revealed paint apps, while sparse, break up the red and blue surfaces a satisfying amount, but they can't distract from this terrible hip design. Yep, we got problems in articulation land too. Ginrai's head looks up all the way, down not at all, but does swivel and set into place for truck mode like his neck panel should have. But really? No ball joint? The arms operate on a double hinge to get all the way up, but when rotated forward, the inner hinge is blocked from moving. Oh, and make sure you have the arms ratcheted out before moving it back, or you risk damaging his smokestack tabs. He does have a beautifully covered butterfly joint, but it's loose. No qualms at the bicep with a 360-degree swivel and full elbow bend. Ginrai's hands can hinge up and down, swivel, and they too automatically set into place like his neck panel should have, and his fingers are on a single base pin knuckle that barely makes a difference because of the 5mm port sculpting. He has a floppy mid-torso bend that I'm convinced is only there to provide extra wiggle room for the bad arm transformation design, which makes the actual 3-ratchet detents of ab crunch a bit unenjoyable. A side-to-side joint helps to cool my anger. But it can't overcome this absolutely atrocious hip design. Side hip flaps that peg into the front skirts, meaning you have to untab them before moving the legs and either leave the front hip skirts uneven for an A stance, or use the loose drop-down hips to get the leg out without compromising the sculpt. And get this, the front hip skirts are sculpted in such a way that if you move them up more than 60 degrees, they collide with the side skirts, putting pressure on the hinge and cracking it. I've already had to glue mine. To top it all off, the outward hip ratchet isn't spring-loaded and eats away at the gear teeth. Make sure your copy is nice and lubed up, or you'll have a Floptimus Prime on your hands. Working around this idiotic design gets you a decent range. The actual knees are one hell of a tight tolerance that eats away at the tab housing for a nice degraded plastic effect. By using the transformation joint in conjunction, you can get even more range though. His ankles and toes do what they need to, or would if Ginrai's hips gave them a chance. Utilizing said toe joints and collapsing his ankles back in cab mode, we can fold the legs up, taking care to unlock the knee joints without stressing the hips. Bending the secondary knee joints, they'll softly set into place, angling the legs just right to slot into the smokestacks. Though take care, as these tabs can be prone to breakage and are even being redesigned by Takara for future releases of the mold. Now Ginrai is ready to plug into the trailer. We start off the trailer transformation speedrun by parts forming. Yes, parts forming the cannons. A clever armature like on MP11 or MP52 Starscream is sorely missed here. At least untabbing the arms and their series of 90-degree juxtaposed tabs is much easier to deal with here than it was on the core robot. Though you'll still want to take care here, as if the tabs aren't out all the way before moving the arms, the red plastic will get marred. Once the arms are out of the way, the top edges of the trailer simply fold around and tab into place very securely. Now, besides a fun moment of accordioning the backpack up to reveal some clever accessory storage, we make our way from monotony to frustration. The cannon ratchets make plugging in the backpack a test of patience rather than skill, and although they fold up nicely, the trailer roof hinges are a strange mix of too loose and overly stiff. Base mode won't come soon enough. While rotating the feet into place makes for a fun leg reveal, you have to bend some plastic out of the way to initiate it. Even worse, the sides of the trailer have to be forced out as the calf detailing gets stuck behind the thighs. I don't expect this kind of clumsy engineering on a $250 figure. At least the hands, while nothing new, are satisfying to click into place. And even more so as you don't have to unravel the whole fist. It's sad to say that the closest this conversion has to a masterpiece moment are the feet and hand reveals. Alas, getting the head and abs out of the way sets us up for the combination. Inserting Ginrai into the trailer takes more force than you'd expect. Applying pressure at a 45-degree angle seems to work the best, and rotating the head down as you lock the cab into place avoids the neck panel catching on the feet, but it's all the more unintuitive for it. However, what you're left with is a very well-sculpted playset of a Prime. The aesthetics here look a lot more cohesive to my eye, and the few paint apps revealed around his waist continue the striking colors from the cab. Super Ginrai looks heroic, a little silly, and wholly super robot. His various 5mm ports are only bolstered in this mode and offer a fun play pattern. The array of possible combinations with his accessories will keep you busy for hours. Yet, I'm still unimpressed. Out of the box, my copy's ab crunch couldn't sit flat on account of a miscut sprue. His back cannon ratchet was also so tight and squeaky that I had to lube it up straight away to avoid breakage. His neck panel doesn't stay tapped in, let alone the trailer panels on his legs. This is all due to the gummier type of plastic used to keep these joints robust. It's strong, but clearly Takara isn't used to dealing with the resulting tolerances. And unfortunately, what I can only call standard articulation just adds fuel to the flame. Super Ginrai's head can't look up. There's absolutely no reason for this with such a simple transformation at play. He has an extra joint to look down, a full swivel, and a tilt. So close, Takara. His shoulders are on a double joint with a panel to cover down. They swivel all the way around and the ratchets feel decent. Ginrai's butterfly joints extend to a full 90 degrees. There are some extra joints here that you can activate to get even more range in a variety of poses, but they're mainly for the combination. He has a bicep swivel that sets into place for trailer mode, like the core robot's neck panel should have, and an elbow bend that could have gone further, but stops where it does to avoid scratching the tampoed insignia if you have his guns in his hands. The hands themselves hinge outward and swivel while setting into place for trailer mode, like the core robot's neck panel should have! The thumb is on a base pin knuckle, and so are the fingers, with a second pinned knuckle and a separate index finger. Yet because of the angle of the thumb, you can't get the hands into a proper fist. Takara had mastered articulated hands with MP52 Starscream 4 years ago. What is this trash? Ginrai has a 30-degree ab crunch that could be tighter, a nicely ratcheted waist swivel, and hip skirts that should have rotated with the legs like on MP44. Again, a design they had mastered years ago and have seemingly dropped. Instead, we get these flaps that interlock with each other, meaning you have to fold out the front flaps in order to get the side skirts out, or you risk chewing up plastic. The hips can go 90 degrees forwards and outwards on nice ratchets, and back to as far as you'll need. Yet his thigh swivel is an ugly cut joint? More old technology used on a figure with ample space for advanced articulation. The knee is a heavenly breath of fresh air, getting a great range with immaculate sculpted detail and an orgasmic ratchet. But then the ankles have only 2 clicks of a reed ratchet, you know, the one where it's just a flap of plastic instead of a gear tooth on a spring. It's not only inconsistent, but it feels nasty too. Ugh. At least we don't have to deal with his ankles in base mode. A couple flips and flops of loose joints later, be careful with his thighs, you will scratch the paint. And we're there. This mode rivals the combined mode for most playability, inciting the use of either Ginrai minifigure to really make it feel like a fortress. Out of all the base modes I've seen, including the likes of Titan's Return Metroplex, this one is somehow more believable to me. Maybe it's the sharp yellow arrow details or the shape of the central tower, but I'm not mad at it. That is, until the trailer panels come undone again. I don't recommend this. Above all, the materials used for the joints aren't robust enough, and it makes the core robot frustrating to handle. A lot of the design decisions are idiotic and leave me dumbfounded, specifically the waist of both bots. At least the materials for the body of both figures are solid, and once combined, Super Ginrai is a posable hunk of dense plastics. But in no way is he intuitive. He has his moments, and I have had some fun with the set, but generally I'd classify this release as mundanely engineered, frustrating to play with, and disappointing overall.